When life throws you a curveball, how are you going to handle adversity? Welcome to the Fearless Mindset Podcast, where you're about to go on a journey as I interview security, business, and entertainment leaders on what it takes to stay fearless. I'm your host, Mark Ledlow, and enjoy today's episode. Hello, folks. This is Mark Ledlow with the Fearless Mindset Podcast. And thanks for tuning in. And if you have subscribed to us on YouTube, if you haven't, hit that thumb marker right there and subscribe to us. It'll make the bell go off, and it helps with the algorithm. So we appreciate that. And also, if you go into the podcast platforms, give us a rating, 5-star rating preferably. So it'll help with the algorithms on all the podcast channels. So make sure we get that done. And that's the first order of business before we start the show. And we have a legend in the industry. He laughs. He's been around a while. And I've known Jerry for several years. We had some great conversations and great advice from all his experiences in the streets of this industry. Jerry, thanks for coming on to the show, and thanks for your time.
Thanks, Mark. Happy to be a part of what you're doing here.
I appreciate that. It's been a labor of, love, but it's been a great growing experience for me because I've loved this business because the business gave me so many opportunities, back in my 30s. And I've always really looked up to men like yourself as mentors and coaches, even though if you didn't know that you were that, and always pick your brain. Why would you do this? I got this issue, got that issue. And you always, with your experience, you always had that voice of reason because you've been there.
Yeah, I'm happy to help people. I love this industry. I'm very passionate about it. I want to see everybody succeed. I don't care what school you went. I don't care what area you're working, what type of security, executive protection. I'm passionate about the security and the executive protection. And I want to see people that, succeed. So if somebody asks for my advice, and it's funny, sometimes people out of the blue will send me a message on LinkedIn. Hey, can you look at my resume? I have a question. Can I ask you? And I'm happy to respond. So often I'm responding to people I've never met, don't know what area they're working in. But that's just my nature, I guess. So I'm eager to help.
Yeah, that's all I love about you. You're just passionate about it, and you have so much energy. You're all over the place. You never miss a beat, and you could probably be retiring because congratulations on the sale of your part of your company. And that's not easy to do. Is build a security company in New York of all places, where you probably have 1,000 security companies in that city alone. And congratulations on your success in your training company as well.
Yeah, it was, honestly, pre-COVID, I had as many as 1,900 employees. We did a lot of events, so we had a lot of part-time occasional employees. We did a lot of Live Nation concerts, things like that. Any given night, I might need 100 to 150 people working, which means you got to call 200, 250. But post-COVID, in April of 2019, events stopped for me. That was about 1/3 of my business.
Wow.
And then when things started opening back up, people didn't want to work. So post-COVID, I had about 350 employees.
Wow.
And I asked myself, if not now, when? And decided, what, it was time for the uniform business. Now, I've been fortunate. I had a parent company, IPG, International Protection Group, and I was able to maintain that. We do executive protection. We do upscale events. And I found a good buyer, Allied Universal. They were very eager to take on my accounts. And actually now I'm still working with them on many other projects. They're actually working for me in some capacity. So
what a time.
And thank God, honestly, because recently when I went to renew my insurance, it was unbelievable. I don't know that I would have been able to get insurance to cover the business that I had with IPSA, the uniform business, because the market is upside down right now with insurance.
What's going on with that, Jerry? I didn't know. I hear a lot of people voicing their complaints about the premiums that skyrocketed since COVID. It's just what people going out of business because they just can't afford it. What's that all about? What do you think?
Well, I talked to one interesting gentleman named George. He's with CIA Insurance. It's Central Insurance Agency. He said he believes the big cause was the massacre at the festival in Las Vegas. I mean, they put the sign of the cross up when they said, "Do you do Live Nation?" And I used to do Live Nation events. They had the sign of the cross, and they said, "Satan, get behind me." So. I think that's one issue. I think the economy. I think lawsuits are prevalent now. It's in the last 2 years of my guard business, I must have faced 10 to 12 frivolous lawsuits, and the cost of litigation is so much that you end up having to settle. But when you settle, whatever you pay out, that's net money. So if I had to pay $25,000 out, that's about $150,000 gross. And, all of a sudden I feel like I'm working to pay off lawsuits that, unfortunately the cost of litigation is so high, it's not worth spending the money to fight, because even if you win, you don't get anything out of it. So I think the nature of the world right now, people are very prone to litigate, and knowing that companies are going to settle. That's what I believe. But, so anyway, I was able to get insurance, and I'm working on trying to get better insurance. What a lot of people don't realize, within the insurance, there's exclusions in your policy. And some policies, some companies have insurance, but the exclusion is, say, you can't do executive protection. You can't do events over a certain number. My company did the New York City Marathon. We did the Tribeca Film Festival. And when I went to renew, they put the sign of the cross for that. They just said, you got 100,000 people come to an event. We don't want to, we're not going to insure that. So I think the insurance industry is just upside down because of the fear, I guess, of payouts.
You think that's probably advice from general counsel because the risk was too high now?
What we found is the underwriters, they don't really fully understand what we do or what the risks are, and they just look at, and what's interesting, you get insurance to cover risk, but if there's risk, they don't want to give you insurance. So,
what gives?
Even executive protection is not that risky. We, professionals, we do everything we can to avoid a problem.
Right.
I'm not aware of lawsuits one after another or something for the executive protection industry, but somehow the insurance companies are very weary of that, particularly celebrity protection.
Oh,
yeah. I guess they're in the spotlight, and people want to press forward, get a selfie, get an autograph, and
sure.
I think they just view it as risky. I think they view it as more risk than it really is.
That makes sense. Yeah, I've been in conversation with a lot of companies in California regarding the uniform side, and they're saying, a lot of TPOs down there are saying that, hey, my premium just skyrocketed, and I gotta get it out of this business. It's just not worth it. And so there's a lot. I'm hearing that across all over the West Coast. They just can't afford to be in business because the premiums are higher than the bill rates. And it's like, why be in business? I don't know if what do you think that's a future of guard services that we have to look at now, is not being able to afford to get insurance?
Well, you mentioned California. I gave up my PPO there years ago. I'm licensed in multiple states. My company does a lot of TV show security, and just so many frivolous lawsuits. I gave it up, and what I'll do is sub. Those people that we sub to, I know that they're facing a challenge because of the the difficulty in the labor laws. You have to get a 15-minute break every 2 hours. You have to, when you take a lunch, you can turn your radio off. You don't have to respond. You work 8, and then after 8, it's time and a half. After 12, it's double time. So we pay a premium for the companies that we work with out there, but God bless them. I mean, I would rather sub to, California companies than be licensed myself. I think it's just there's a cottage industry of lawsuits out there, lawyers that find any reason. And they also, I believe they know as soon as they send a letter that you're going to negotiate, you're going to settle, you're going to pay something, because of the cost of litigation. So very unfortunate, particularly on the uniform side.
Sure.
On the executive protection side, there's concerns. You bump into somebody, you put your hands on a paparazzi or something, and right away they're screaming lawsuit. So
they are. Yeah, I think the risk and the way the country's going, it's just, I don't see that industry really thriving, especially on the West Coast. As dangerous as the U.S. gets with everything going on politically and, globally, it's just, I don't see it get any better, but that's just my thoughts. What is your thoughts? What you've probably seen this in trends and historical trends. What would you advise these company owners right now that want to do some guard work, want to do EP stuff and want to do that, and they want to become a millionaire overnight because they see all this stuff on social media?
Well, the overnight success is, you got to put your nose to the grindstone.
Yeah.
You got to put in labor. It's a labor of love. Looking back, there were times where I would wake up on payday and think I don't have enough money to make payroll. And, and you're operating on the guard side, you're operating on a very thin margin. You're making pennies on the dollar. Any payout, really hurt your bottom line. Those legal action and the cost of doing business is skyrocketed in every different angle. Even though you're able to raise your rates based on pay, minimum pay going up and things like that, you don't recoup, or it's not proportionate, because now customers have to pay more. And then, it's very competitive. And to some degree, that's why some of the larger companies do have a more competitive angle or competitive, difference, because they have more wherewithal. They can come in lower on bids and things like that. And after 33 years, I just thought, what? I was happy to have the uniform. We did a lot of amazing things, particularly a lot of special events in TV show security and things like that. My parent company, we're still doing the TV show stuff, and then we also have executive protection clients. We do some occasional suit and tie type special events here in New York because so many people know me for so many years. So
sure. What is your thoughts on the whole EP industry? Where is it going? Do you think this is it changing or evolving? What's your pulse on it right now?
Oh my God, it's a great opportunity. I started in the security industry in the late 70s, got involved. And at that time, it was almost a mandate that you be a former law enforcement or former military. That was almost seemed to be the criteria. In fact, I actually started to go into law enforcement so that I could meet that criteria, but had a kind of a meeting in the crossroads the night before I took my police exam, and I decided, you know what, I'm going to stay true to my calling and stay in security. And now there's so much more executive protection available. It's a growing industry. And I think the sign of the times, with all the hazards out in the world, we have a lot of civil unrest in all things, all things considering, we are in a civil war because a lot of people are uncivil now. We don't have a civilized society.
Hmm.
Folks are being uncivil. You go to get your bag at a carousel, and fights break out. You go into a fast food, restaurant or something, and so there's a lot more hazards. So I think the EP industry, I'm excited about it. I think the forecast is very good. So I'm very upbeat about it.
But when you say we are in a civil war here in the States based on the conflict, like you go to the airport, get your over by them people fighting over it, is that because of the stress after COVID, the pandemic, everybody just coming out of the woodwork now, just pissed off and fighting on the jets and everything? Or is it because the 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 polarization of politics? What's your thoughts on that?
I think it's all of the above. I mean, COVID did apply a lot of stress on people, but part of I believe COVID was the government taking away a lot of our freedoms. And I believe that, some of our freedoms are at risk. Um, and so people are stressed out and our country is divided. There's the left and there's the right. I mean, just my personal view, and this is my
Sure.
personal view, in that I see there's a lot of ungodliness and godliness, and that's just kind of my spiritual take. It seems
Hmm.
like you can divide some of the issues into godliness or ungodliness, godly behavior, ungodly behavior. Um, the concern about reparations, CRT. I think that colleges are influencing people to think socialism is the answer to a lot of problems, and it's amazing. Um, when I can't believe in 2024 that the world is the way it is right now. So
It's mind blowing, absolutely mind blowing. Me being a Marine Corps veteran, I'm like, is this really happening in U.S. soil? Are these college kids thinking this way? Where did the
uh,
professors get this ideology? I mean, they're paying hundreds of thousands a year for these kids to go to these top schools. And I'm like, why? I'm just blown away. I never thought I'd see any of this in my life in the States.
no,
I'm
it's almost unbelievable, and I can't profess to know the answer to it. Even this upcoming election, I think any which way, whatever happens, we're heading down a dangerous path, and that's sadly it's good for the protection industry.
it is
Um,
true.
it's not something we wish for.
No, not at all.
Um, and thank you for your service. And as a military vet, when you go into the military, and the hope in the military is not to have to fight. And that's professional protectors. We don't want to fight.
No,
I tell people, I know the outcome of every fight I don't get in.
that's right. You don't have to go to the hospital. But yeah, you said something very impactful. I thought I talked to a client of mine, and he goes, just think of it this way: whichever way the elections goes, chaos is business opportunity for us. I'm like, yeah, but I don't wish anybody harming our U.S. soil. I really don't. I wish we could live in peace and harmony and, live out our constitutional rights as Americans. And it's like, look over your shoulder. You're going to get, rubbed at gunpoint in the Bay Area for driving a Mercedes, and they're going to carjack you right there. It's just, the boldness is unreal. It's like they know they're going to get rewarded for being bad. It's like, what the heck? It's just, and then for a while, it seemed like there's trying to be social media sensations on Instagram, trying to get 1 million followers by doing stupid stuff. Now they're all getting hooked up and go there by the detector following their ISPs on their phone and going, oh, we got you tagged now. It's like, it's just crazy to me.
Yeah, I think the unfortunate, and I try not to be political per se. I have certain leanings. I grew up, my dad was a combat vet, fought in World
Sure.
War II, 70 combat missions. I 20 years in the Air Force. So I grew up as a military brat. I didn't go into the military because I had a medical condition, and they told me I wouldn't be accepted. And later in life, they said, "Oh no, they would have taken you." So,
They would have taken
but
you.
the problem is, you're decriminalizing crime, you're empowering people to like the shoplifting, and then stores are closing down because they can't afford the losses. Um, so there's a lot of things happening politically. There's a lot of things happening. Um, like one of my clients years ago said, Jerry, you either have order or you have disorder. You can't have both. And, law enforcement maintains law and order. And
Yeah.
most civilized people abide by the law. You come to a red light, you stop. You're obedient for the sake of the whole. But once people give up that and I can do whatever I want and there's no consequences, then, sadly, society starts breaking down. And I think we're having some breakdowns in society, so again, that's why executive protection industry is favorable, because people with money, they want to protect themselves. They're fearful of the consequences. I would rather go right now to Mexico City than say parts of Detroit or Chicago. I'm based north of New York City. My office is in Midtown Manhattan, but there's areas of New York that, and I'm licensed to carry in New York and have been for 40 years. But and now, even when I go into the city, I'm concerned. What if something happens? Can I escape that without having to use deadly force? And it's almost more fearful to have to use deadly force. It doesn't give me any degree of confidence, that I am armed and have that ability to protect myself and others because of the legal consequences. The old adage, better carried by 6 or tried by 12 than carried by 6. No, I don't want to survive a situation and then face, being in prison the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So I try to use the art of avoidance. I try to minimize exposure to risk, but nowadays, like you said, you're driving a car, somebody feels entitled that they can come up, pull you out and take your car.
Yeah. Yes. I'm watching way too much TV lately. I've been home last few weeks, recovering from the bid and recovering from that, going watch way too much news, more than I usually do. And I think that's a problem with a lot of people too, with a lot of young folks. They're constantly on their phone. Like I was over at my sister's house. I walked in there. I'm like, everybody's like this. And we're all, especially the younger generation, I think we're all consumption of all these apps, and you have all those distractions. And you had that 24/7 news thing in your head if you have all the apps, and it never stops. And now that we live in a real-time society, I think it could become overwhelming, causing probably the depression that a lot of these your generation are dealing with. They don't know how to deal with it. I'm like, well, stop looking at your phone, put it down, and live life. They just don't know how to do it.
When I was a hippie ski bum back in the the 70s, my method of happiness was don't read the news, don't watch the news. But I also felt uninformed. When people would sometimes around me would say, "Hey, did you hear what happened?" And I was like, "What happened?" I didn't know what happened because I tried not to pay attention. But like you said, nowadays, we have a dumb phone. All that information is right there.
Yeah.
And like Trump said, fake news. The media is jaded. You have to filter. Now the big concern is misinformation. I'm thinking, but the people saying, well, this is misinformation. What makes their information not misinformation? So you have to filter. it. And I think in politics, corruption is on both sides of the aisle. Oh my God. I mean, there's a swamp, and the swamp is deep and it's broad and full of people on both sides.
Yeah.
So,
true.
I don't know the solution per se, but I'm still optimistic.
wasn't that kind of where misinformation is so vital in protective intelligence, where you get protective intelligence analysts to analyze, cipher that information to see what's a threat to your principal or your client or your corporation or whoever you're protecting. That's why we're seeing a growth in the analyst space, I think, more so than ever before. And I've noticed the uptick in the last year or so.
Well, it's critical for protectors to provide intelligence-based protection, meaning, where are the real threats, and what intelligence is documenting that. Now, when my clients go on foreign trips, we get consulting reports, and it's good intelligence, and then we're able to base the need of security based on quality intelligence, and you have to filter that out. I remember the first time I went to Sao Paulo, Brazil. I got on the State Department website and saw that there were 40 murders a day in Sao Paulo, and I went there and I was so nervous, but I felt like I'm driving around in Queens, New York or something. And then I asked the locals, and they said, all that crime is in the worst areas you would never want to go to. Right. So then I realized the information I got information, I didn't get intelligence. And then I had raw information. So we're overwhelmed. I think we live in an information age, but we're overwhelmed with information.
Yeah.
We have to filter that information to what is applicable and what's not.
That's why you need a good analyst that knows how to cipher that stuff out. And I think I'm hearing there's a big need for that. Like right now, Stephen Pellerin, our new deputy operations manager, he was over at the Atlantic Summit, and everybody's talking to we need analysts, not enough of them. And everybody was like, well, how do I break in the exec protection industry? Like, well, maybe you should think about maybe that field of security too. Take some courses, go online, take some courses, learn how to do that type of stuff, because it sounds like there's a bigger need for analysts than there are bodyguards.
Well, absolutely. I know when I went to, say, the Facebook campus and saw 12 analysts there.
Wow.
Collecting information on POIs, people of interest, persons of interest that made threats and things like that. You look at Crisis 24, at risk. They specialize in protective intelligence, which is vital. OnTech is, and I wanted to go to OnTech. I have a house in Austin, but broke my leg. So.
Oh yeah, how's that doing? You healing?
Yeah, it's funny. I feel fortunate. The type of break, no surgery was required or things.
Oh, good.
Just have to heal. So it just slowed me up a bit.
Slowed you up a little bit. I didn't know you had a house in Austin. Are you next door neighbors to that one podcaster guy, Joe Rogan?
Well, my daughter has my daughter lives there, and I decided we wanted a house near her. So I bought a house, and we've been fixing it up little by little. And, it's nice to have a residence there. And then I live in New York. My son lives at home with me, so I'm happy about that. But, and I have a few other properties.
Smart man. Properties. Here's something probably the audience and the listeners that are trying to get in the EP industry, or maybe they're in the exec protection industry, and they're trying to figure out, how do I have a successful business? What is your advice to those guys to do with the money they make? Because I think you have an expiration date eventually, that nobody wants to be hanging out with you as a body person to protect them. So what is your advice to them from a business perspective?
Well, very good question. And I think, I try to encourage people to look ahead. Well, one is when I really got into it, and I kind of had I tell people I'm a former hippie ski bum and light bulbs go off, but when I went to EPI, I was humbled there because I thought I knew a lot because I was pretty experienced and traveled around the world, worked on big details. And when I went to EPI, and Doug Kovas had a saying, "We don't know what we don't know."
True.
And what I found out, I didn't know that I didn't know, and I didn't know that what I didn't know. So I decided I wanted to be a student of this industry. I wanted to always be learning.
Sure.
So one is, and also for protectors, I would encourage them to consider the possibility of, say, moving up into management as they get older. Because again, you have a limited, how long can you be in the field? And then it's important also to invest your money. I mentioned I have homes. I've been flipping homes on the side, for years. It started out, I started hunting in Pennsylvania and decided I needed a hunting house or a hunting cabin and bought a cabin and then ended up fixing it up and then saw a bigger cabin and sold the one cabin and then I hired a contractor or a foreman that works directly for me. I would buy houses and then he would fix them up. It's like a side hustle. You have to be mindful, especially those people that are independent contractors.
Oh, yeah.
They're living large because, they're getting, in a way, gross money.
Gross,
you have to
exactly.
think about it. You have to put money aside to pay the self-employment tax.
Yeah.
And some people, I see them living large because they think they're making a lot of money, but they're not making as much as they think they're making.
True.
So part of it is savings, considering the future. And a lot of those that are working as independent contractors, they're not putting any money into their Social Security,
Right.
So that's a concern I have. All of a sudden they reach, retirement age and they haven't invested into themselves. So, one is, like you said, they have to think about the end game. How long can I do this? And one of my employees, he's been with quite a number of celebrities for many years, big names. And recently he said to me, Jerry, I didn't think I would still have to be in the field at my age.
Right.
He's away from home. He's touring with a major artist. And, it's dragging on him. And he replaced someone that eventually his knees gave out because he'd been out there for so many years and his body wore out on him.
Yeah.
And I see that happening in the industry too. So, it's important to, like you said, to consider that end game, to consider, what's my future, consider moving into management possibly, also maybe doing lighter work like advances or like you said, the intel part, the analyst, based on your knowledge and learning how to navigate, protective intelligence, that could be something that somebody could do into their senior years.